You're sitting by a fire, deep in the ancient past. You're hungry. You've been walking all day, and the only food nearby is a pile of fruit that fell from a tree days ago. It's soft, mushy, going brown, and it smells strange, a little sharp, a little sour. You're too hungry to care. You eat it anyway. And a little while later, something happens that no human has ever planned for. The world goes slightly warm. Your worries soften. Your body feels loose and light, and for reasons you cannot possibly understand, you feel good. You have just become one of the first humans to feel the effect of alcohol. And you didn't brew it, or plan it, or even know what it was. The fruit did it for you. This is the story of how humans discovered alcohol. And it's stranger, older, and far more important than you might think. Because alcohol isn't just something humans stumbled into a few thousand years ago. The taste for it may be tens of millions of years old, older than our species, older than walking upright, written into us long before we were even human. And the moment we finally learned to make it on purpose may have changed the entire course of civilization. To understand where alcohol comes from, you have to understand one simple piece of nature. Alcohol is not a human invention. It happens on its own, all the time, everywhere, whether we're involved or not. When fruit ripens and then begins to rot, wild yeast in the air lands on it and starts feeding on its sugar. As the yeast eats the sugar, it produces two things: carbon dioxide gas and ethanol. Ethanol is alcohol. So a piece of overripe fruit sitting on the forest floor is, quite literally, brewing itself. No pot, no recipe, no human required. Nature has been making alcohol for as long as there has been fruit and yeast, which is to say, for tens of millions of years. And this is where the story takes a turn most people never expect. Because if alcohol has been forming naturally in fruit for that long, then the first creatures to taste it weren't humans at all. They were our distant animal ancestors. In the year 2000, a biologist named Robert Dudley at the University of California, Berkeley, proposed an idea that has fascinated scientists ever since. He called it the drunken monkey hypothesis. The idea goes like this. Millions of years ago, the primates we descend from lived on fruit. In a thick jungle, ripe fruit is hard to find, and the animal that finds it first and eats the most of it wins. Now, ripe and slightly fermenting fruit gives off the smell of alcohol, and that smell travels far on the wind. So any animal that could smell that alcohol, follow it, and feel drawn toward it had a real advantage. It found the richest, most calorie-packed food before anyone else. In other words, our attraction to alcohol may not be a modern weakness at all. It may be an ancient survival tool. The primates who liked that smell ate better, survived better, and passed down their genes, including the gene for being drawn to alcohol, to us. And this isn't just a nice theory. We can see it in animals living right now. In the rainforests of Malaysia, there is a tiny creature called the pen-tailed tree shrew, often described as a living model of our early ancestors. Every single night, it drinks fermented nectar from a palm flower, taking in the human equivalent of around 9 glasses of wine, and it never appears drunk. Its body is built to handle alcohol as a normal part of its diet. In Africa, researchers from Oxford Brookes University documented wild chimpanzees deliberately seeking out and drinking naturally fermented palm sap, going out of their way for a drink. Even bats and fruit flies feed on fermented fruit. The taste for alcohol, it turns out, is not something humans invented. It's something we inherited from a line of fruit-eating animals stretching back millions of years. So for most of human history, this is what drinking looked like. Not brewing, not cups, not celebrations. Just an ancient human finding a patch of overripe fruit, eating it, and catching a faint, accidental buzz. It was rare, it was unpredictable, and it was never something you could store or control. The alcohol was weak, the amount was small, and when the fruit was gone, it was gone. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Humans stopped waiting for nature to make alcohol by accident and figured out how to make it on purpose. And when that happened, everything changed. For a long time, historians assumed this happened fairly late, after humans had settled down, built villages, and started farming. The story went, first we became civilized, then we invented alcohol as a luxury. But the real evidence tells a very different and far more surprising story. The oldest solid proof of humans deliberately making alcohol comes from a place called Jiahu, an ancient village in the Yellow River Valley of China. And it is old. The residue found there dates to around 7000 BCE, roughly 9,000 years ago. The discovery was made by Dr. Patrick McGovern, a molecular archaeologist at the University of Pennsylvania who has spent his career studying ancient drinks. His team analyzed the chemical residue left inside old pottery jars from Jiahu, and what they found was remarkable. The jars had held a fermented beverage made from a careful mix of rice, honey, hawthorn fruit, and grapes. This was not rotting fruit eaten off the ground. This was a recipe, a deliberate blend of ingredients combined and left to ferment into a drink of around 3 to 6% alcohol, roughly the strength of modern beer. Think about what that means. 9,000 years ago, people were not just stumbling onto alcohol by accident anymore. They were brewing it, on purpose, with a recipe, and storing it in specially made jars. And they were doing this at the very dawn of the settled human world. And here is the part that genuinely challenges how we think about our own history. There is a growing idea among some researchers that alcohol may not have come after farming, but may have helped cause it. It's sometimes called the beer before bread theory. The argument is this: when you look at the very first grains humans grew, they were not always ideal for making bread, but they were excellent for brewing. And building a settled life around planting, tending, and harvesting grain is a huge amount of hard work. So why did humans do it? Why give up the freedom of hunting and gathering to break your back in a field? One possible answer is that the reward was worth it, and part of that reward was the ability to gather, to feast, and to drink together. Consider Göbekli Tepe in modern Turkey, one of the oldest monumental sites on Earth, with massive stone pillars raised around 11 to 12,000 years ago, before farming, before pottery, before permanent homes. It was built by hunter-gatherers, and archaeologists have found evidence of large-scale feasting there, possibly including fermented drink. People were gathering in huge numbers to build something together, and, it seems, to celebrate together, long before they settled down. It raises an astonishing possibility that the desire to come together, to hold feasts, and to share a drink may have been one of the forces that pulled humans towards civilization itself. We may not have started farming just to eat. We may have started, in part, to drink. And once alcohol was part of settled human life, it became far more than a drink. To the ancient Egyptians, beer was a gift from the god Osiris. It was so central to daily life that workers who built the pyramids were partly paid in it. Beer was food. It was safer than much of the available water. It was medicine mixed with herbs by early doctors, and it was an offering to the gods. A single cup could serve as a meal, a wage, a medicine, and a prayer, all at once. Which brings us back to you, sitting by that fire at the beginning, eating overripe fruit, and feeling that first warm, accidental glow. Everything that followed, the recipes at Jiahu, the feasts at Göbekli Tepe, the beer that built the pyramids, and every drink raised in celebration since, grew out of that same simple, ancient pull. The pull that our fruit-eating ancestors felt millions of years ago when they smelled fermentation on the wind and moved toward it, because it meant food, meant energy, meant survival. Your body still carries that ancient wiring. The reason a drink can feel warm and social and rewarding is not a modern accident. It's the echo of a survival instinct older than our species, one that helped hungry primates find food in the forest long before anyone thought to pour it into a cup. Ancient humans didn't really invent alcohol. Nature made it first, for millions of years, in every patch of rotting fruit. Our ancestors simply learned to notice it, to chase it, and finally to make it themselves. And in doing so, they may have brewed one of the first threads of human civilization. So the next time you raise a glass, remember that you are taking part in something almost unimaginably old. A story that begins not in a brewery, not in a village, not even with a human, but with a piece of fallen fruit, a little wild yeast, and an ancestor who was simply too hungry to walk away.